Welcome, February 13th, 2020. We are going to talk about some of the eclipse points. Cancer and Capricorn. Cancer represents our home, our feelings, our emotions. It's where we nurture ourselves. And that's what we do in the home, right? We go home, we put on our music that we like, we have the food in the refrigerator that we like, or we order food, however it is, whoever you are and however you like to take care of yourself by ways of nurturing and pampering. And maybe you're the one that goes into the bubble bath. You know, maybe you're the one that plops down on the couch and you put in a movie, or you want to watch the news, music, whatever it is. We all have our own thing. Maybe you go into a particular room you've got in the house where you've got art supplies set up, so you go at it, or maybe you play an instrument. There's certain things that we all have that literally feed us. And so we find out through living what that is. And that is how we nurture, that is how we love ourselves. So the sign of Cancer is all that and more, because it also represents our emotions, right? And that's exactly what we do. We take care of ourselves and we give ourselves what we need to feel good. And then we establish our emotional security. Right? We take care of ourselves. We realize this is what's important to me. This is what I need. And we give it to ourselves. That is what Cancer is about. It's a very sensitive sign. They're very in tune with the surrounding energies. Many people say they feel empathic because they can feel what others are feeling. Cancer represents mom. Okay? Cancer is mom feeding the child. The child is receiving its sustenance, its love, its nurturing, right? From mom. It's nutrients from mom. And so that establishes the foundation of our fourth house, Cancer. Because when we are in the womb, mom is our house. So you see the connections and the reason and the way that we can use words interchangeably with a symbol, with a house placement, with a house number, right? Cancer, the number 4, words like mom and home and feelings, because all this logically, when we break it all down and we start discussing it, we throw it out there and we say, these are the things that I would put in the bucket of what I need to feel nurtured. And so when we do that individually, specifically, we get the meaning for the bigger picture of it. Because then on a large scale, Earth is our home for right now, right? In our 3D physical tangible world, Earth is our home. Now, the exact opposite of home is work, is where we go out in the world. We leave the home so that we can make this journey, right? And when we leave the home and make this journey, we're going here. And this becomes what we aspire to be. This becomes our goal. It becomes this area of life that we want to be recognized for. We want recognition, acknowledgement, where we get rewards for something that we've been working on diligently over a long period of time. This is the sign of Capricorn. We know there's no shortcut. We have to follow the rules. If we try to cheat, we get knocked back down again, right? So that we understand this to be our professional world. Now, for many folks, this does not match. This would be the 10th house, by the way. The opposite of the 4th is the 10th. For many folks, this doesn't necessarily match the profession that they're in. And that's because if you look at your chart, Capricorn up here at your 10th house, that's earth element, okay? And you look at your chart and in your 6th house, you see Libra there. Well, those are matching energies. Capricorn's element is earth. Its energy is cardinal. So if you've got the 6th house with Libra in it, Libra's energy is cardinal. So matching energies square. And typically that would mean that there's 90 degrees, a possible actual square there. Right? So there's a friction because they just butt heads because they're so much alike. You need something that they'll create a balance. Too much of anything is too much. So what you do to narrow that down and more specify is you first just look to see, are there matching energies? And if you see there's matching energies, then it's like, okay, I need to do further investigating. I need to find out, first of all, then, do I have a planet there and is it going to square up? How do you find out if it squares up? Well, you look to see if you have a planet in your Libra, right? Following this example. And you say, all right, let's say I have a 25 degree in Libra planet, which this chart does that I'm about to go over. Their moon is at 25 degrees Libra. So what I would want to do is I want to go to their like energies, which then would be cardinal. So that's Capricorn. And the opposing cardinal from Capricorn is Cancer. Okay. So those would automatically square. Now, if I know I have something in Libra, this cardinal energy at 25 degrees, I'm supposed to pull out my protractor? Right, I get it, I know, right? When I first started looking at charts, that's exactly was my response too. Like, who the hell's doing this? No, there's little shortcuts. And the shortcut is First, see if you have matching energies. And if you have matching energies, find out if you have matching degrees. So this person has a 25-degree moon. I'm going to look to see if they have a 25-degree anything in Capricorn. And I'm going to look to see if they have a 25-degree anything in their Cancer energy. If they do, I know without using my protractor, without counting every goddamn degree, I know right off the bat that means 90 degrees. So there's shortcuts, okay? And this hopefully has answered that question by that example. And if it hasn't, feel free to comment and I will further add details to that for you. It is a Cancer ascendant, Cancer rising, but because of the eclipse that's coming, I'm doing this reading for this person because their matching degree to the eclipse point. The eclipse point is actually already, I think I already said, at 14 degrees in Capricorn. This summer, it happens in July, and it is July 5th, happening at 14 degrees Capricorn. I'm going to go ahead and give out a birth date and birth time and all that good stuff so that we have the details. January 10th, 1961, 3:20 p.m. Herlev, Herlev, I believe Denmark. I'll have the details printed in the fine print below the video. If you are not sure if this is you, all that will be down there as it is below every video that we do for the free readings. I started off with the bang, which is letting you know something that I believe you already know. But whoever's listening, folks who are either a Cancer ascendant or a Capricorn ascendant, understand what eclipse energy, if it's that point, that means that it's happening here, but it's also happening at the exact opposite side of you in your life. That's how eclipses work. It's not just that point specifically, it's also what's exactly opposite, because these energies have this, this line that they send across, right? Bam, the eclipse happens in here and it bam, shoots some energy down here. So you need to know, what is that? So for this person with the Cancer on their ascendant, right? I already talked about all that Cancer stuff and what it means. Well, opposing it is their Capricorn energy, which is in their 7th house. It's on their descendant, which means they have Capricorn over there and the eclipse is affecting it. And because they have a matching degree of the eclipse, yes, 1359 is considered the same as 14 degrees. It's that close. It's spot on. So I would give it orb of 2 degrees. What does that mean? It means 2 degrees before 14 degrees and 2 degrees after. So in other words, the degree orbs then, if I'm giving a 2-degree orb for the eclipse energy, that would say between 12 and 16 degrees. So if you have anybody, regardless if you are a Cancer rising or Capricorn rising, Cancer ascendant, Capricorn ascendant, doesn't matter. Look in your chart and see if you have anything between 12 and 16 degrees of either Cancer or Capricorn, okay? Because there is an eclipse. This is an eclipse point, which means it's a trigger. It now becomes a trigger point. And every time a planet rides over that point, it's like it presses the eclipse button. The eclipse button gets pressed. And what it does is it then further supports the eclipse energy. Recently, not that long ago, a few months ago actually, the transiting nodes, because the transiting nodes have everything to do with where the eclipses occur. I'm trying to not go too deep because it gets complicated. But what happens is, because this happened months ago, it went over your eclipse point. And these eclipse points have power. Typically, when you have it matching, like this individual's chart, right? 1359 is the same as 14 degrees. You feel the energy of the eclipse first. And it normally happens up to 6 months in advance before the actual eclipse occurs. Tend to express energy in a complicated way. First, I get the conclusions. And then it's like I have to dig around and shuffle shit and listen carefully and slow down to get the front end and the middle. Like, don't you hate those movies that begin that way? Then they begin to unfold and tell you the whole story. What is the significance of an eclipse when it happens on your ascendant and when it's opposing your descendant, or vice versa? Because in a way, a lot of it means the same thing, okay? Anytime the eclipse happens here, it's affecting here as well. It's affecting whatever is exactly opposite of it, all right? So ascendant, which is your appearance, which is your body, okay? Because you have Cancer on your ascendant, this is your physical home, meaning where you live, where your body resides. Likely that's going to change. Now, whether that means there's remodeling going on, whether that means you are literally moving and living somewhere else, like literally picking up and moving, that would require more time into your chart. But it looks to me, because it happens across the way, it has a lot to do with significant one-on-one relationships. You have a buttload of Capricorn energy right across the way. You have a lot of planets there. It's about work. It's about partnerships. And these partnerships include business partnerships and personal partnerships. So those are changing. Those are definitely going through major changes. You've been going through major changes. A lot of your changes happened and was probably a little bit more intense when January came around and the month preceding that. And now even it can still be happening because we still have Saturn and Pluto who are still all in that house still. Saturn is starting to wean away, but she is at 26 degrees. Pluto's like at 23 degrees. Jupiter's starting to join the party now, and then Mars in not too long, actually, Mars is going to also then be joining this. And Mars typically doesn't have the best, Mars adds an intensity of, okay, we know this is happening, let's just do it now. Mars gives us the energy to say, fine, let's do this. So if things were dismantling, if there's been talk about separation and starting fresh, this is exactly what you're doing. Pluto's involved. So the recommendation anytime Pluto is involved is, well, Pluto comes around and says, we are starting new, and we're not starting new in a way where we're using the pre-existing structure, right? We're not doing a remodeling. And by the way, this is in your 7th house. We're not doing a remodeling. We are ending and then starting brand new. This is what Pluto is in your 7th house, okay? And it's exactly squaring your natal moon right now, and that is it's in your romantic relationships. It also has to do with children. It's in the placement of children, but having fun and having a good time. It's with committed one-on-one relationships, though. It is definitely people who are very important to you. This is not about, the 11th house social circle stuff. It is about people that in some way you have a commitment to, okay? Whether you have it on paper or not, everybody's different, but there's some sort of a partnership thing. Like I said, this would include business partnership. This would also include your personal relations, romantic partnerships. This could also include relationships with children, because that's where the moon is, and that's what's getting squared right now. So there might be some things that are ending and some things that are beginning. This is the theme. There is this eclipse also on your ascendant and your descendant. So that means my home and my work, those things could be changing. Not could be, they are. They're definitely changing. Many times where we live changes because our work changed. Many times our work changes because our home changed, right? Because they're connected. They run along the same line of energy. This began for you. You've been feeling this for a while, and because of the eclipse in July 2020, you're already feeling it more so than before. Like you have an extra concentration of it. You're going through some difficult stuff. You have some very beautiful supportive energy in your chart, by the way, that I want to make sure that I bring up. You have your past life, one of your past lives, which I felt compelled to dip into and talk about. And I don't normally like to dip into past life work with people, only because I find that a lot of people tend to become fixated on what it was they used to be. And to be honest with you, I don't see the relevance. I only find it to be important if I know it can give help in the present and moving forward. So with that said, I'm dipping into that here. There is a beautiful sense of idealistic love that you have. So idealistic that it's very relevant for you to be aware of it, because it's one of those things, our greatest strength is our greatest weakness type of thing. And if we're not cognizant of it, it ends up being something that becomes a detriment. That's just how it is. What we're not aware of controls us. So having this love, right? Having this super idealistic love, because you have a very strong connection with the divine love. It's like past lives where you were the priestess, where you were the priest. Past lives where you were connecting with God, Father, Spirit, where you were connecting with the cosmos, where you're connecting with the universe, where you have knowledge, where you have the ability to communicate directly. Okay, that is within you. That is part of your past that you carry with you. Because you have that, your level and your ideals when it comes to how love should look, how love should be, how love should feel, all right, is unattainable at times. And you kind of want to make sure you're aware of that. So you might have to knock it down a few notches, right? Because what happens is then that means our expectations are so high that nobody else could ever meet those expectations. And it's difficult because it's not fair. On the other hand, this is beautiful. It really is. This is a great energy for being super creative. This is one of the outstanding markers I see in your chart, is the sign of an artist. And so I had the pleasure of looking at this chart, loving the feel of it, because of Cancer on the ascendant, trining more water in your 5th house, which is the house of creativity, of this is what I created, this is my creation. And it's in a nice, beautiful trine with the 10th house, which is where you have more divine, creative beams streaming in. It's the Pisces energy. So your water houses are lined up with creativity and the career, right? With being up there and being your goal, being what you want to be recognized for. But this can also be, when we say the artist and creativity, this could be whether it's with a paintbrush, whether it's with an instrument, okay? Whether it's through sound. It could be you have degrees of freedom. So you choose how it is you want to be artsy, what it is you want to create. You've got the Scorpio energy down there with Neptune assisting in the 5th house. So you can get these wonderful visuals, and whatever it is you're seeing, somehow, whether you use words on paper to paint and create images for folks to read, whether you use a paintbrush to share these images that you see or the sounds that you hear, because the Pisces energy is about sound very much. It's also about theater. So this could also be literally creating a new being, a new person every single time you get on the stage, every single time there's a spotlight on you. It could be that as well. Pisces energy, great actors, but it's very creative. So how do you create? Are you creating with paper? Are you creating, where it's you standing there under the spotlight on a stage and you literally have this new character? You have great, super supportive beams to be connected to the other side, to be touching in the ethereal and going above, but bringing it down so that us here in the 3D, because this is what this means, this creative energy hookup, it's very 5D. It's very otherworldly, cosmo-generated streams, beams coming in, and you're the receiver of them. And what happens is when energy comes in, right, when these frequencies beam down on us, we're the hollow bone, so to speak. We're the receiver. Now the question becomes, how do you emit what has come through to you? Because it's not just for you, it's for others to receive as well. And so that's what art does for us. Whatever your tool is, however it is you express your divine force. All right. So I love this about this chart, and I would love to hear about how you do that if you aren't, or if you've been thinking about it, and I can't imagine you don't or you haven't. I mean, it would really blow my mind away, actually. Or if you've dabbled but haven't spent a whole lot of time doing that, I would like to see a chart like this. I would like to see more of it happening. With that, I've got some dates written down for you that I want to talk about, but before I give you those dates, there's something else that I looked into for you in your chart because it was very relevant. You have a out of bounds planet in your chart. Okay, in your natal chart. So what out of bounds means, we've all taught, I've done a lot of videos already on this, but basically what it means is it creates an imbalance, and it is Mars, the planet Mars in your chart. Typically when I look at someone's chart, finding out if they have an out of bounds Mars is important for everybody, especially if it's in a water sign, and yours is. Your Mars is in Cancer. Cancer is our emotions, our emotional world, our inner emotional world, all right? So if your Mars is out of bounds, which it is, it automatically means that when you were born, okay, when you came in, when that soul came in and took on 3D, right, took on this physical vehicle, it automatically established an emotional imbalance, all right? That's just how you came in. This is what your soul chose to do. This is how evolution occurs. We take on different experiences, and then we experiment, we live, and then we express. And for this life, it is already difficult, whenever I see charts, when people have their Mars in Cancer, okay? It's usually already difficult because anytime that Mars is squared up by transiting planets, not to mention anything you were born with squaring it, it triggers this vicious emotional response. If you've ever known anybody, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, or if you're listening, hopefully you realize this is your video and that you've got the message that I left you when I tried to contact you. But you will realize when you have, because Mars is fiery. Mars is about fighting. And so when we mix it with water, it's boiling water. Okay, it's eruptive because that's what Mars wants to do. Mars wants to shoot out. Mars carries daggers. All right, Mars is a warrior, a fighter. So when you mix boiling water and Mars together, You know, it could burn, and it could burn you. That's the other part of it. That's why it's important to understand. Here you go. I might not be telling you anything you don't know. You, like, through life, right? Your birth year was 1961, right? You're not a teenager. You've lived for some time now. You understand this about yourself. Well, here's astrology explaining to you something that maybe only science has been able to talk to you about. Whether you've been tested or diagnosed, or whether you've recognized swings in moods, because it's Cancer, which means it's connected to the moon. And for you, it's really, really, really connected to your relationships, right? Being very emotional when it comes to relationships, because that's what your chart indicates. But recognize your moon and your Mars and that whole mixture of emotions, and either gonna swing up or swing down viciously, whether at yourself or at others, and realizing the challenge is about, here's an imbalance, let's see you live with it. So what does that mean? It means we have lifetimes where we are trying to reestablish balance. It would pay off for you to know a little bit about astrology, okay? For you to know the moon cycles. The moon transits through a sign every 2.5 days. So with that information, you could really easily understand how your mood and the swings that they could take, how they could change depending upon how the transiting moon is aspecting your private moon and your Mars in your chart, okay? So if you need more help figuring that out, just comment below and I'll get you started. You know, where you can look up a digital ephemeris for yourself. If you're not into that, I can at least get you into those directions where it can help you to follow some of those things. There's a date coming up in February 20th. This whole month is kind of crazy because we're going through a Mercury retrograde. So February 17th, the Mercury retrograde begins. I'll attach the video for you. This is happening in your 10th house. 10th house is your career. That's when the retrograde Mercury starts to go backwards, and then it floats down into your 9th house because it goes back to 28 degrees Aquarius. 9th house is what we believe, okay? So beliefs, whether about yourself, your beliefs about life, your opinions about the world, they can be very fixed, right? And also based on maybe some scientific things. You're a definite thinker, so you may find yourself having very individualistic and unique beliefs. There's also this connected to the world humanitarian type belief, possibility, you know, high expression of that energy there. A lot of things about self involved in this, and definitely connected to ways of speaking, ways of expressing and communicating. There's so much about ourselves that we have to learn about how it is we think, how our thoughts come in. And for you, you have lightning type of thoughts that come in, okay? They come in, and they can be shocking, and so can the way that you express would be loud and shocking. Maybe you don't perceive it that way. Maybe others have said that to you. Don't be surprised, okay? This is the way you came in. But when someone mentions these things, we kind of say, okay, I gotta kind of raise my awareness about that and take it down to tone and octave and think before I speak type of stuff. The Mercury retrograde, going back into that house of your belief, and then going back again into your 10th house, it's tying it in your beliefs about work, okay? Your beliefs about your goals, your beliefs about what you want to do for your future, all right? And this Piscean energy is part of that. And it's going to feel kind of maybe muddied and confusing. And that's okay. When we talk about the Piscean energy, because there's the confusion, because there's clouds of illusion, many times I tell people to surround themselves with individuals who are thinkers, who are intelligent, who are articulate, who are objective, who are rational. And I heard another astrologer explain that at this time, it's a time of trusting. Because the truth is, our thinking and intellect isn't sharp right now. It's being blurred. And so sometimes you just got to have faith. Well, that's what Pisces represents. Pisces is having faith, realizing that it is difficult and confusing and crazy right now. But if I just have some faith, later on down the road, I'm going to get an answer. Later on down the road, I'm going to see a solution. Later on down the road, I'm going to understand why I had to go there and do that to get to here, right? That's usually how it works. So at this time, this is what we're all being tested to do. When I pull up your chart and I look at the February 20th date, what's happening for you at this time is there's a discomfort. You have a big T-square in your chart, right? Which means you've got this and this, okay? There's opposing, and then an angular 90-degree thing happening here, which means it squares this way and it squares this way. They're very uncomfortable. I want you to know this. This happens on February 20th. And so give it a few degree orb, right? So like 18th, 19th, 20, 21, 22. There's squaring up for all of us in general, but for you in particular, This is happening, it involves your Mars. That's because you have an out of bounds Mars. And so when your out of bounds Mars is challenged, and when there's stress and tension, and it's all about yourself, there's something about yourself professionally, because that's what I'm looking at here, something about yourself professionally. It could include people who were considered friends. Either it's the way they're communicating with you, either it's something about yourself. There's something about family and home that you're not aware of as well right now, because this is 12th house energy. It's the 10th house squaring the 12th house, okay? So what we have is information about self up here, meaning you like to lead when it comes to work. You like to be, you probably, well, I shouldn't say that. There may be times in your life where you found that you like to start over in a new job, where you found that it's easy for you to just go ahead. Like, if this job doesn't work, I can always go ahead and just get another one, right? There may have been a time when you did that. And we have this squaring up happening with the Mars, and it's affecting the home. And when I say it's affecting the home, it's more like it is affecting your inner emotional world that is hidden, not only from others, but even from yourself, because it's located in your 12th house. The 12th house is our subconscious, meaning there are things that we're not aware of. Now, you might get inclinations of these in dreams, all right? It's a very good possibility. Pay attention then to your dreams. And when you pay attention to the moon cycles, that will help you to understand if you're just receiving emanations based on the astrology, right? The planetary movements, because the planets give us inclinations. The planets are what we become under the influence of, like as if you were to take a sip of alcohol. Understanding that, you can then utilize your free will, because you can say, wow, isn't that a coincidence? I dreamt about this, and when I look where the moon is, it's here in this location, and this means this, and this is what I dreamt about, meaning it's not mine, right? What I'm doing is I'm dreaming about, I'm getting information in from up there, and so me being the filter, receiving it, the receiver of it, and it expressing as I'm sleeping, me dreaming about it, or it coming out in your conversations, it just kind of pops out and be like, where the hell did that come from? Because many times information isn't necessarily our own. It comes from beyond. This might be confusing as hell, what I'm saying, because, well, it is confusing. I don't know how else to say it. When something is subconscious, it's something you're not aware of, it's complicated, right? And so for me to talk to you about something that you're not aware of is complicated, right? It's really confusing. But without a doubt, it's going to have to do with relationships, because the energy, when I follow it in your chart, it goes back to significant one-on-one relationships. And a good part of it isn't just the significant one-on-one relationships at home specifically, but it's definitely around dating and romance, so romantic partners. So that could be people you're married to, but anytime you've done dating, it could be related definitely with children. There's a big children energy here, right? And children can be things that we've created. Doesn't have to be children I physically had, because I don't know if you're a male or female, and I don't need to know. The energy is the same, right? It's just, this is what it is. We are divine beings in that we have freedoms. We have degrees of freedom that we can express. So you make these creations. You decide what they're going to be. And these relationships with these creations, okay? You can be very controlling with them. And that's another part of what I have to talk about in your chart, is to be aware that because relationships are so important, there's something about the beauty. Like, if I'm in a relationship, it should be like this. It should look like this. It should feel like this. And when it's not that, we try to do things. We initiate things. We try to control. Bottom line, we try to have a hand in it where we say, okay, but it's not balanced right now. It's not fair. Because I know I've just been saying the word relationships, but fair and balanced keeps coming through. Things need to be balanced. There needs to be some sort of fairness involved here. This is very important. When that's not happening, you will step in, because when it's not happening, it is an emotional, it bothers you. And so you'll step in to try and achieve that balance. But what you may not understand is there are moments when it's actually you controlling. And the controlling is what causes a lot of friction with others, okay? Now, all of this isn't really like a huge heads up, because again, you have so many planets in that 7th house, and this is the Capricorn energy. And with all those planets, we have the transiting planets there. We had the big Saturn-Pluto conjunction there, and it was right on your Mercury, which means it was all about your thinking, how you think a relationship should be, all about how you communicated that, okay? All about your business relationships too. And I keep saying business because there's something about structure, right? Organized structure, right? And typically when something is this organized, it's almost, well, it almost takes on a business type tone, right? Where it's like, okay, governmental tone even, military even at times, where it's like, okay, there's these rigid rules and this has to be this way, right? This has to look like this. This should be here, right? So there's things about this in your relationship. You know, it's very earthy, very tangible, very 3D, because this is what your 7th house says. It's about, I can work for the long term, okay? But you also have this other placement that tests constantly. So you may find that for you, the best relationship, believe it or not, would be relating with somebody who in some way, I don't want to say is an authority figure in your life, but someone who appears to be older/wiser. Now, this could be by age, or this could be by just their thinking capabilities. But you somehow, some way look up to these people. And this would be beneficial. I do not doubt that you see yourself as that person as well in a relationship. What I would recommend, though, is being aware of the desire to attain such loving, beautiful relationships. And when I say loving, beautiful relationship, it doesn't have, you know, we all have, when I say that, those are general words and they could mean anything. 1,000 pictures pop into folks' heads. There's a beautiful thing you have because you have that past life of your Venus and your Pisces energy, and realizing that love doesn't always look like the Hollywood stuff. It's not necessarily all about flowers and romance, even though that's beautiful, right? You like that. But that's not what makes the everyday, day-to-day stuff work. I mean, those are important and they should be included. But if that's all it's built upon, in no way in hell is it going to work. So you have very clear ideas, very organized, structured ways of how, of what it's going to take to get there. Very high goals. It's the implementation of it and the individuals that you incorporate into that, which might be tricky. And that's what this is. That's what your chart is. It's like, my mother used to always say, and still does, it's a trick bag, because it's like you're set up with this one extreme, then you're set up with this other extreme, and then you have this other extreme, and you're supposed to like shake it up and then like, you know, rebuild this beautiful, balanced, fair, loving, yet structured thing in your life. But your whole chart screams relationships. Whether it's business relationships, relationships with yourself, significant relationships with love, right? In marriage, it screams that. You do have a connection where you can go deeply and bond tightly with people in groups, large groups, social circles. You have that ability. But the bigger meaning right now is because Pluto and Saturn are in that 7th house, there's a dismantling. It's this, all these ideas I had about how this was supposed to look, it's changing. You're being asked to release all of that. You're being asked to start over from the ashes. So it's starting over from the ground up. Pluto came by and ripped out the roots. So it's really a starting below the surface. That's what Pluto demands. And that's what happened. The eclipse that's coming in July, this further emphasizes this because it supports what you've already been experiencing. It supports this change at work, this change in significant one-on-one relationships that could be personal and business. This then further supports the eclipse opposing your ascendant, which is home. Meaning if work changes, home changes. If this relationship changes, all of a sudden I need to find somewhere else to live. We're splitting up. We're not living together anymore. This is ending. So this has to change. Home has to change. I hate the fact that this whole reading has just been about a dismantling and change. What I do also want to end off your reading with here is that right now, around February 20th, there is some beautiful support that's coming. You're going to see towards the, you're going to see as the planet, as the planet Uranus transits through the sign of Taurus, and Taurus is our values, what we value. And you value your friends, okay? You're going to get to this point where, because it's Earth, right, like element, it's going to start sending beams, supportive trines to your 7th house, to all your 7th house energy. And it's not that far off. You have a low degree Jupiter. By 2021, I know that seems like forever, but by 2021 and 2022 and 2023, you're going to be constantly receiving supportive beams from Uranus, okay? And Uranus is shocks and surprises. And these are trines, okay? Trines are good, which means beautiful surprises, surprises that you like. And it has to do with finance. It has to do with what you value. It has to do with things that are beautiful. It lines up really nicely because it's going to support your Libran energy, which is relationships. Taurus is ruled by Venus. And what did we start talking about? We started talking about how your Venus is in Pisces, right? And that Venus in Pisces is sending trines, is going to be getting a beautiful trine from Uranus very shortly. Actually, when we go to July, you're going to get help at that time from Uranus. It will be sending a beautiful supportive trine actually to your house of your career, which is your goals, which is something you've been working on for a long time. That's what the 10th house is. It's this long-term project, long-term creative project. Pisces is a beautiful energy. It's all about, we are all one, recognizing that there's so much more than the tangible 3D world. It is about the non-physical realm and bringing it in. How do I bring that 5D world into the 3D? This is what you have in your 10th house. And that's when I've talked about your creations. So when that time gets here, when that eclipse energy happens, you're going to also have support, okay? So I hope this has given you a bit of sanity, knowing, oh my gosh, what the hell's going on? This is what's going on. You're not crazy. And yes, you were born with this out of bounds Mars. And so recognizing that out of bounds Mars when we have things going on in our relationships is going to be key. There may have been times when things, because that's what the out of bounds Mars is. The energy goes from 0 to 10. Actually, it goes from 0 to off the chart in your case, literally, okay, very quickly. It's explosive. And so you got to be aware of that if you're having, relationship problems. And the universe has definitely got you in the midst of that. It's definitely sending you challenges. If you have any questions and if you want to do some further work, you just let me know. I hope that this has helped for moving forward for you, and I hope this has shed some light on your way. Thank you.